Sorry. I was just watching the UFC 285 press conference where everyone just said over and over again that they can't wait for Saturday and that they've trained really hard for this fight. And also, just in case you didn't know, all of the fighters are really excited for their fight. Just in case you guys didn't know that. I don't know if it was because of the media members asking really, really boring questions, or maybe it was just the fact that the fighters are just really, really boring as personalities. But don't worry, they all can't wait for Saturday night. They've all trained really hard for it, and they're all ready to win and show off their skills in the cage on Saturday night. Just in case you guys didn't know that before you watched the press conference, now you know. You know, that's what that was for. You know what I mean? However much money the UFC puts in to that press conference, for us to sit there and for it to be 25 minutes to half an hour late, as it usually is, at least we know that the fighters are looking forward to their fight on Saturday, because I wasn't quite sure. I wasn't sure if they were excited about it, but I've written down some notes from the press conference, and we're going to go through some of those notes. So Jon Jones goes through the Jesus stuff immediately. He's back on that type of wave, so he was reciting Bible verses, like, I think he was up there on stage saying something like, this reminds me of a Bible verse, John 3:16, thou shalt put hands on your wife, and all this type of stuff that he was going. It got a bit weird. Some of the Bible verses, I'm not sure were quite in the Bible, but either way, thou shalt crash into pregnant women with cocaine-stained nostrils, and all this weird verses that must have been on, like, the extra DLC Bible. Because I remember, like, the Bible came out, and then they sort of, like, brought out, like, a DLC version that you could pay for. And I guess Jones has the DLC, so I haven't really checked that one out. But, yeah, a little bit of weird Bible verses that he was coming out with. But overall, he was very respectful of Ciryl Gane to begin with in the press conference. And, you know, there was a moment where he sort of, like, looked to the crowd, and someone asked him if Jones thinks that he's the GOAT of the sport, and he looked to the crowd, and then the crowd stood up and cheered for Jones and said that he was the GOAT of the sport. So that's something that happened that was a pretty cool moment, I guess, that you can clip out and show. Gane was getting booed, and the Jones fans were out in full effect. So Gane's got booed a couple of times at the start of his questions, and when he was trying to give an answer. Already not really a native English speaker, so that really helps. Thank you, Jon Jones fans. So he was getting booed, and he also said something that we kind of all expected him to say, where he said he had no idea Ngannou was going to wrestle him, so he wasn't training to prepare for that, but this time he's training and he's been prepared for the wrestling of Jon Jones, and he's got that covered, whereas in the Ngannou fight he thought he was going to strike with him for 5 rounds, so he didn't even bother preparing any kind of wrestling defense. But that was interesting. That's kind of good to hear from Ciryl Gane. And then Shevchenko started saying some generic stuff about preparation and training, and you will see during the fight, and all this type of stuff that she went into, and, this will be good performance and good fight, and all this stuff that she was saying to Grasso. And then Alexa Grasso came out and said, you'll see during the fight what I'm going to do. We didn't realize that, so thank God she mentioned it. But yeah, she was alright at the press conference. She said that we will see during the fight. Bo Nickal only got one question throughout the whole thing. Jamie Pickett got more questions than Bo Nickal, which was very interesting. Bo Nickal got one question at the start of it, and that question was, he was just saying, well, he got 2 from the same person, I guess. And it was just like, how do you feel to be up here? And he said he was thankful to be up on the stage, and then said that he was expecting a first round stoppage, which is good to see. That's something, at least, that isn't just you'll see on Saturday night, I guess. So that was good. Apparently we're looking forward to a first round stoppage there. And then Jamie Pickett said that he was going to spoil the show, and that was his job, which is true. You know what I mean? He's got to go in there, spoil the show, do what he needs to do. So we'll see if that works out for Jamie Pickett. I'm telling you, this might have been the most boring press conference of all time. There really wasn't anything going on. I writ down here, crowd chants for wife beating loser. And then I said, Gane said he has no problem with his hand, which is very big. That's a big deal. We were waiting for him to answer that question, and one of the media members, very rightfully so, brought up his hand, and he sort of made a fist, cabbaged his fist, to show that it was strong, and said that he has no problem with his hand, and since the surgery his hand's been recovering fine and he's feeling good. So that's good to hear. It's not like he was like concerned about it or anything like that, because he does have a lump on his hand, but a doctor came out. I was worried about it, but a doctor came out and said that's normal to have a bit of a mark there, seeing as he did have surgery on it last year, which is interesting. And then they asked a question to Gamrot, and he was talking about how he's going to be looking for the finish against Jalin Turner, and he also said that he thinks Dariush is going to beat Charles Oliveira, and then if he does, then Dariush, like 200%, deserves the title shot in the lightweight division. Preach for us, Mateus Gamrot. That's what we're all thinking. But Neal Dariush arguably should get a title shot now rather than having to fight Charles Oliveira, so, you know, that'll be good to see him finally get that title shot if he does get past Charles Oliveira. And obviously Gamrot's going to say that, though, to make himself look better for losing to Dariush, knowing that he'll then go on to fight for the belt. Jalin Turner had, really dead answers to his stuff. Like, I'm ready for this weekend, and that he's ready for short notice fights, I guess. Something I should say about Jon Jones is he seemed a little bit like, not like this cool, really like psychopath Jon Jones that we saw at maybe the Reyes press conference, or like some of the other ones that he's had where he's playful and cheery. And, you know, the Dominic Reyes one, he was very serious and stoic and he had no emotion and he was just delivering these lines. Whereas at this one, he seemed a little bit like he was looking around in between saying stuff, and he just looked a little bit unsure of himself at the press conference. That's what I took away from it. But obviously, he might just be a little bit, he might have just woken up. You never really know what's going on with the fight camp of these fighters. But he did look a little bit jittery and had some nervous energy at the press conference, I must be honest. Then we move on to another thing, which was Jones said that Gane's footwork is his strong point, but then he also said that Gane has bad striking defense and he relies too much on his footwork for his striking defense, whereas that's just having good striking defense. So that was an interesting take from Jon Jones, which was interesting. And then Gane was talking about liking the feeling of being booed before a fight and said that he has respect for Jon Jones as the GOAT and this is the biggest fight of his life. And then Jones was also talking about the fact that he's improved his work ethic for this fight. Dude, I'm telling you, he's capping about the whole thing. Capping about the whole situation. Because I'll go on to it later on. We'll talk about it now. Jones literally says, like, he barely trained before, and he only did like a few weeks of training sometimes for his previous fights. But whenever he answers a question about what it took to get to the point that he's at, he always mentions, like, it took being in the gym every day to be so successful for me. This isn't something that I got overnight. I've earned this with blood, sweat, and tears in the gym. Like, he always does that. Like, he'll say that, you know, I barely used to train, like, as like whenever people bring up his bad performances that he had. But then whenever people ask, like, what did it take for you to get to the position you're in on top, he always mentions being in the gym every day and, you know, always showing up and putting in the work in the gym and doing it day in, day out, every year, working hard all the time and putting in the preparation. I did this with hard work. So what is it, Jon Jones? Stop contradicting yourself, please. We also mention something else about gambling people at these press conferences. Are you a lock? I fucking hate them. Get them out. If they are from a gambling company, get them out of the press conference, please. I don't want them asking questions. Every single event, someone gets asked if they're a lock, and they're like reluctant to say that they are because they know that if they say that, everyone's going to take that as a reason for them to put money on a fight for them. So it's just like they're all like, I don't think it's a bad idea to put money on myself. So, yeah, I guess you could put money on my fight and put money on a finish from my direction of it. And, I guess you could put money on me. I know this type of stuff. Like, get these gambling people that are like, the odds had this and now they've swayed the other way. Could you tell us nice and loud into the camera so we can post this on our social media gambling website? Are you a lock this weekend? That's all they're trying to do, basically. Get a little bit of a click for their gambling website by having them ask a question to Jones about him being a lock or not. And then we've got, so I think we need to get them out of the press conference completely. which is annoying. And then someone actually asked Shavkat a question, and Shavkat just gave a generic response again, and the translator didn't even translate what Shavkat said. He just did half of it, and then I guess that's that. Because the Shavkat clearly said Jeff Neal's name and mentioned something towards Jeff Neal, and then the translator just didn't even bother translating that part of it. So again, the translators are doing terrible work if they're not that Giga Chad Brazilian translator. So they're up to their old tricks again, not translating what Shavkat Rakhmonov said, or translating only half of it and giving us the gist of it, where I really want to know what he said to Jeff Neal, but we'll never know, I guess. And then John was asked, where's the after party going to be if you do win on Saturday night? Are you going to get lit, and how lit are you going to get? Middle-aged person saying lit was interesting in the crowd. And then John said, I'm not getting lit at all. And then Dana had the one funny moment at the press conference came from Dana White. I'm not getting lit at all. And then Dana went, amen. You know what I mean? Which was funny. Which was kind of funny because we all know what happens when Jones gets lit. Women get hit. You know what I'm saying? Jones gets lit, women get hit. That's how it goes, baby. The goat's hands don't discriminate. Then he also said that he's used to working with heavyweights when asked a question about how he was going to deal with the experience factor of Gane in the heavyweight division as a heavyweight. And he said he trains with Andrei Arlovsky, Frank Mir, Travis Brown back in the day. So he's used to working with those heavyweights, which is true. But on fight night, it's very, very different with the adrenaline pumping compared to sparring and doing drills with them. And then one of the people asking the questions at the end mocked Jones for thin calves, I guess. Or they brought up a quote from Joe Rogan where he said that John Jones has comically thin calves. And Jones took a little bit of offense to that, I guess. Just seemed a little bit attacked by that comment. But other than that, the only other interesting moment that took place at the press conference was their confusion with them. Some French question person desperately wanted to make an NBA reference. So he was saying that Jones is like Michael Jordan, and how would you deal with someone with like LeBron James's athleticism in Cyril Gane? Basically saying that he's the athlete the level of LeBron James, which isn't true, but at the same time, like, he is the athletic problem in that division. So I said it's not a bad comparison, but obviously, like, LeBron James has also achieved so much in his own career, so it was a bit of a weird thing to bring up, and Jones kind of pointed to that because Gane, you know, hasn't really achieved much in his career yet in terms of winning titles and belts and, you know, winning a bunch of title fights in a row and stuff like that. So that was an interesting moment. And other than that, it was just the face-offs. Jamie Pickett and Bo Nickal had a pretty friendly face-off. Bo Nickal's really tall. Didn't expect to see him that tall. He's a pretty tall dude. I thought he was going to be a little bit shorter, but no, he was just about the same height as Jamie Pickett, who is also a tall dude for the middleweight division, so I feel confident about him. I thought he was a bit of a small middleweight, but he's quite a big dude, so I think he'll fit him quite well in that division. We also had Shavkat and Neal, pretty mediocre face-off. They just sort of stared at each other. Shavkat Rakhmonov is massive for the welterweight division. Jeff Neal's a little unit as well for that division. We also had Jarlin Turner towering above Pickett Gamrot. Very tall guy for the lightweight division. Jarlin Turner seemed a bit lethargic at the press conference. He seemed a bit out of it and slow and drowsy. Maybe he's already begun his weight cut because of how much weight he does cut to make that division. So who knows? That's probably affecting him a little bit. And then we also had a co-main event face-off. Shevchenko, Grasso, whatever. Who cares? No one cares at all. And then the main event. Gane's taller than Jones by a little bit. It was hard to tell because Gane had a beanie on and Jones had a cap on, which is ultimate tall guy, don't really want it to be seen just how tall they really are type of shit. You know what I mean? But if I had to guess, I'd guess Jones is a tall 6'3", and Gane is like barely 6'4", 6'4.25" maybe. He's just a little bit taller than John Jones. I think it's maybe also because he has a very tall top of his head as well. So even though Jones's eye level and nose level might have been a little bit higher, Gane's got a very domey head at the top of it, so that was giving him a little bit of a height advantage. He's definitely a big dude in the heavyweight division, but Jones is fitting him well in the size of the heavyweights. Didn't look dwarfed by Cyril Gane in any way. But it definitely looked a little bit smaller and not something we're used to seeing at a Jones press conference, other than maybe when he's fighting Alexander Gustafsson. But that's that. That's the press conference. I wish I had more to say, but that's literally it. Yeah, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. It was probably the most boring one of the past few years. So, thank God Jones is got the hype of being a GOAT, because my fucking God, that guy's dull as fuck. See you later. Goodbye.